You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Right now, I was getting my steps in before I came back to the mic. I was walking up and down the hall, going to get some water, making sure I get my steps in. It's something I swear by. I average more than 10,000 steps per day. But this week particularly, I'm trying to average 20,000 steps per day, at least for the week. See if I can work it into my schedule. And it's not necessarily the number of steps. It's just being intentional with being active, working in radio. You find yourself sitting a lot. Doesn't matter if you're a personality behind the mic. You could be an engineer. You could be a producer. There's a hell of a lot of sitting. And the next thing you know, you've lost 3 or 4 hours of your day and haven't moved. I have sworn by my Pixel Watch, had Pixel Watch 1, and now I have Pixel Watch 2, which combines with Fitbit. And I've used Fitbit for the better part of 7 or 8 years. And I've always known in the back of my mind that my data was subject to being either sold or stolen through a breach. I've never deluded myself into thinking that just because I did not consent to have my data being stolen or sold, that it either or both wouldn't happen. But more and more, we're being forced to deal with that possibility, distinct possibility. And it makes you wonder, should you not use a wearable technology? I'm talking about smartwatches, smart rings, fitness trackers, body monitors, or even like you have those heart monitors, like the cardio mobiles. You can put your fingers on it and it'll give you a hospital grade, professional grade EKG. And it uploads to an app. All that kind of stuff is very personal, but also that stuff is very valuable. And there are other companies which would love to have it. And that's just if it's sold or stolen. What about the idea, and it's possible, that your own personal data, your own health data might be used against you in the assessment of insurance, life insurance, or a medical insurance? No, legally they're not supposed to do that. But if someone has your data, it could happen. And more real discussions are being had about the susceptibility of the devices and also the feasibility, or I would say the wisdom of having that data out there. Now, for me, that horse has left the barn about 8 years ago. So much of my data is out there somewhere, in some place. I try not to think about it. I can't even worry about it. It's something that I've talked about before with Marsha Collier, our regular tech contributor. It's something I think about, but not to the point of paralyzing me, because everywhere we turn, we are asked to give away some form of our data. We are asked to sign in on a website through usually our email account, through our Google account or our iCloud account or something. We're signing in, and then those third-party apps have access to all of your other apps as well. It's kind of scary when you think about it, but it's the reality. And I love technology. I really do. I'm always looking for the latest item. And to be honest with you, I'll probably buy another smartwatch. Why? Because for me, the health benefits and the reminders of being active and being able to track my resting heart rate and oxygen levels, that to me is more valuable than the concern of what some idiot out there may do to breach Fitbit or some other location where my data is held. I try not to live in fear, and I try not to be paralyzed by what could happen. I don't know about other people, but I'm still going to use the technology. But I think we should do it eyes wide open. Mark, you're looking at me as if like you would never use a Fitbit.
No, all it would do is record that I'm about to have a heart attack or a stroke while I'm reading the news before work every day.
Are you one of the people who would like, hey, I would rather not know because it would paralyze me?
I don't want to be all self-conscious about that, if you can relate to that at all. Because I think my walking around level of anxiety and anger is probably pretty pretty strong, and I don't need to be reminded of it constantly.
I don't mind that because as I get older, I need to stay abreast of certain things. I'm not trying to be completely blind, but like, for example, I mentioned resting heart rate. I monitor that constantly because it gives me a sense of how active I've been. I know if I keep my resting heart rate in the mid to low 60s, I'm doing pretty well. And it will rise if I should happen to get sick or if I'm not eating as well and, my heart is working harder. Like if I had a night out drinking, my resting heart rate is going to rise.
Oh, is that what that does? We have a blood pressure cuff at home. It's just gathering dust. I just can't be constantly worried about that stuff.
Now that I agree with you. Monitoring my blood pressure, and it's something I've had to do, but when I put on the cuff, it actually worries me more because I got to be to the point where I was obsessed with that information. And then it started bothering me and raising my blood pressure because I got to be psychotic with it.
Yeah, what is that? The old quantum physics observational problem where the active observation affects the thing you're observing, which in this case is your heart about to explode.
Yeah. Now, when I was checking my blood pressure, it wasn't data that I was uploading. So it's not something that I was worried about getting out there. There are apps I could log the information on my Fitbit, but I never did. So that's another side of the coin or, another side of the die, something to consider. There's the internal response where you respond to all this data you have. And for me, I try not to get too deep into it, worrying about my resting heart rate or worrying about my blood pressure. But I am cognizant of how I'm eating. I am cognizant of how often that I'm moving, how many steps that I'm getting in a day. And although there are other concerns about what happens to my data, I'm not going to let that paralyze me because it's more important for me to stay on this course in a general health sense than worry about this data being misused. Because I always start from the standpoint of, it's already out there. It used to be you had to worry about your social security number. Oh, trust me, it's out there. Because you've given it to your healthcare provider. You've given it to your job. You've given it to your phone company. You've given it to just about every place where you have a utility. Your social security number is out there. That data has been breached in one of those companies. So it's not something that I'm going to lose sleep over any given night.
I get that, the whole bandwidth thing and how you should only spend time worrying about things that you can affect or help. But at the same time, I think when we stop being angry and outraged about things that are wrong, that's when we're dead.
Or our heart explodes.
Or that.
Pick your poison. It's Later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640, live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Later.
KFI Mo Kelly, live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And it's weird. If you follow as much news as I do, and you get into the granular discussions of the economy and what the economic outlook is, it's weird when you have two similarly positioned companies have wildly different views of what the economic picture looks like. And I'm not making a point other than it's strange. It's really strange. Here's Target. Target has forecast as of today that sales during the final quarter of this year will be flat, and Target lowered its forecast. Target also reported a sluggish sales increase of just 0.3% this past quarter. And to wit, shares of Target plunged 22% today. Target's worst trading day in more than 2 years. Economists say that Target is a bellwether for consumer spending habits and the retail sector as a whole. Let's say that that's true. Then why is it I see an article on Walmart released just about the exact same time saying that the exact opposite is true? Walmart has told its workers that it plans to win the holiday season. And ahead of the peak shopping period, Walmart retailers have said that they're well positioned and broad-based strength across its product range. In my mind, Walmart and Target are similar, going after many of the same customers. In fact, despite all of Target's woes, which Target is blaming on the economy, Walmart says that its U.S. sales increased 5% in the third quarter, surpassing their own analysts' estimates. In fact, they expect to do very well during the holiday season. So if you have Walmart and Target, and Walmart is the largest retailer in the world. Let's be clear. The largest retailer in the world. Excuse me, the nation's largest retailer. And you have Target, who may not be the nation's largest retailer, but going after basically the same customers. And Target saying it's bad out there and we're going to have a bad holiday season. And that means most retailers are going to have a bad holiday season. But then Walmart says the exact opposite. So who are you supposed to believe? U.S. sales for the holiday shopping season are expected to increase from 2.5 to 3.5%. That's according to the National Retail Federation. And if you know your history, that's consistent with where the economy was in terms of holiday shopping in 2019. That was the first, I would say, 6 months after the pandemic started. In and around a couple months before the pandemic started. And Walmart also forecasts that 3 to 4% sales growth for the current quarter gives, quote, an indication of how we're thinking about the holiday period, close quote. Sales at Walmart's U.S. e-commerce business jumped 22% last quarter, the nation's largest retailer. So I struggle to understand if the economy's so bad in the way that Target is positioning it, how is it the nation's largest retailer is doing gangbuster business, both in person and online? That's not me saying it. That's Walmart saying it. And Walmart is saying, we're going to do even better this holiday season. And Walmart's e-commerce business now represents 18% of its global business overall. It's going to be a banner year or holiday season for Walmart. And Walmart is clearly saying, the economy's looking good for us. We're doing just fine, and we expect a great holiday season. But Target is trying to say, well, we're not doing as well, and we're a bellwether for what other similarly targeted stores, no pun intended, are going to do this holiday season. I don't know what to make of it. I'm more inclined to believe Walmart.
Well, we're seeing lots of reports that people are planning to buy major stuff before the end of the year.
Ow!
Because the reason given from the economists that I've been following is that they're all terrified of what's going to happen when President-elect Trump's tariffs go into effect. And so I've got an article right here from Forbes with Walmart's CFO saying that his tariffs are probably going to cause Walmart price hikes. I've got, and if you think Forbes is some lib commie pinko outlet, I got news for you.
Don't tell me Wall Street Journal.
We've got Morgan Stanley.
Oh, yes.
Saying the U.S. economy will collapse by 2026 because of the tariffs. So it's definitely causing a lot of people, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, to be nervous. Kind of a range from a little nervous to filling their pants.
My takeaway is that if you're worried about what the tariffs will do, then you're probably in a place where you believe that the economy is not as bad as people would have you believe. And it can get a hell of a lot worse.
Well, the economy's been booming by every metric this year. So it could only get worse from where we're at right now.
But the point is, most people don't view the economy through actual indicators. They view it personally. They view it in a personal feeling sense. In other words, they feel like, well, I pay more for gas, I pay more for eggs, I pay more for milk. And that's not necessarily true, but that's what many people will say. And they look at the economy through the lens of what they feel personally. That's incorrect. It's more about vibes. And if you look at someone who actually knows anything about economics, if you look at the leading indicators, if you look at housing, if you look at the stock market, if you look at GDP, all of those things are moving in a positive direction. The rate of inflation is coming down. That's just a fact. It's not about anyone's feelings. And so what the takeaway for me in these competing articles is, you're hearing from retailers after the election, talking about that Forbes article, talking about the Morgan Stanley article. They did not want to say that before the election. If they said it before the election, I believe they felt that they would have been punished for saying it before the election. Now that the election's over, they're saying, oh yeah, the tariffs are probably going to cause a problem for not only us as retailers, but for consumers as well, as we pass along that tax to consumers.
There are a lot of factors going on at once here. For one thing, I think a lot of the people who didn't want to report on the possible effects, the disastrous effects of tariffs, they're also the same people who are looking forward to massive tax cuts.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. That's all.
Everything comes with a price.
Yes.
You know?
I know.
There's no free gas, grass, or ass, man.
Nobody
There's no free
rides
rides.
for free. And people will find out in their own way and in their own time the difference between an actual tax cut and also between that and tax liability. Just because less money is taken out of your check, it doesn't mean that your overall liability has been decreased. For some reason, people still haven't learned that since 2017. And they think because they have more take-home money that they won't have to pay more at the end of the year. It's almost like changing the amount of your deductions. You can play with it and give yourself a tax cut if you want to. But ultimately, that bill still comes due at the end of the calendar year.
It might seem like free stuff, but it always costs.
But I thought people were against free. Never mind. KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And if you've been paying attention to, I will say, the trends of streaming and cable, it seems that cable might be on the way out with content providers. And I say maybe. I think this is maybe the first shoe to drop of many. But when I read today that Comcast is planning this massive cable spinoff, cable specifically, is getting rid of USA Network, is getting rid of MSNBC, is getting rid of more from the NBC family. And it says to me that this might be the first example of content providers moving beyond cable, which is a limited delivery system. As I said, Comcast is going to get rid of MSNBC, CNBC, Universal Kids, USA, Oxygen, and Sci-Fi Channel. And I'm surprised they didn't get rid of Sci-Fi Channel a long time ago. I thought it was a great idea. And then I started watching some of the Sci-Fi Channel, and a lot of that content was just garbage. It wasn't even B level. It was like D- level.
A lot of it's pretty cheap, but
it was really bad.
Don't forget, they did have Battlestar Galactica.
No, they did. They had Farscape. They had some other things which were decent, but their original programming was really, really bad. They were taking stuff that was barely above, theater projects coming out of college. It was really bad. I can understand that. Oxygen never turned into the channel that I think Comcast thought it would be. That's Oprah Winfrey's channel. Maybe E has just run its course. E doesn't have the type of cachet now that it used to. I'm sorry to hear about USA Network because I used to like a lot of USA Network shows. They had Suits. They had White Collar. They've had a number, Psych. They've had a number of shows over the years, but maybe they're just a little long in the tooth. And also, you have streaming now. You don't need to have a cable channel, and people have to pay for those cable channels, and people are leaving and have been leaving cable in droves. And just in case you didn't know, when you get a cable system, you're often subsidizing a lot of these channels that you never watch. Like if you get a cable subscription, you're paying a lot of money for the ESPN cluster of channels, A lot of them you don't even watch, but that's a part of the expense of getting a cable subscription. You're paying for all those channels, watching them or not, as opposed to streaming, where you're more just getting the stuff that you actually want a la carte, as opposed to the stuff that you really have no designs on watching. That's part of the reason why Disney has been flirting with selling off ESPN and other cable channels for quite some time. They're not as lucrative as they once used to be, and cable is a dying content provider. Now, we can say that streaming hasn't been the panacea that we thought it was going to be. We can say that streaming hasn't been what we hoped it to be as far as the true alternative to cable. Remember, we got into streaming and said, oh my goodness, I can get this channel, I can get this streaming platform, and it'll be just what I wanted to watch. And at the time, it was more economical than cable. But now you get your Netflix and you get your Disney Plus and get your Paramount Plus and Max, you put them all together, and it's getting right next to what cable or satellite was, what we were paying monthly. And this is going to continue to evolve, but you can see, once again, there's another nail in the coffin of cable. And the new Comcast/NBC will consist of its broadcast operations, NBC News, NBC Sports, Peacock, and the company's theme parks. And if you think about streaming, Comcast probably, I don't know this, but I think it's a reasonable bet. Comcast does not want to have to pay all the licensing and all the residuals to keep these cable channels and their intellectual property available for you and me. Peacock has never been doing as well, I think, as NBC would have hoped, but they still have to pay the licensing on all these shows that I'd mentioned and others that I didn't mention to keep them on the platform. Have you ever wondered why shows will go away from Netflix or some other streaming platform? Because they don't want to keep paying for them. So they would rather bring in fresher content. Now, how Tubi, Mark, manages to make money, I'm not sure.
Well, I suspect that they have a lot of older cult things that aren't in massively high demand that they don't have to pay a huge licensing fee for.
I guess. But when I turn on Tubi, it's like, there's not a lot for me. I think it's great because it is free. I just don't know as a business model, even with ads, how that works.
They so far have just about enough ads that you're not going to want to bail on them, but you notice that they're there.
Oh, you notice that they're there. And as much as I've started liking Paramount Plus, I started watching Landman, the Billy Bob Thornton show, Taylor Sheridan show. It is great. Billy Bob Thornton is hilarious on a show which is not meant to be so funny. It is outright laugh out loud funny. And the reason I bring that up because Paramount Plus had been struggling, but now they have some really hot content and turning it around. Peacock never had that type of heat behind it and doesn't have the type of content which are bringing in new subscribers. I'd be willing to see what Paramount Plus has been doing in recent months. They had to have been growing in subscribers because between Linus, that and Tulsa King, and this new show Landman, and other stuff on Paramount Plus, they're on a pretty good run.
They've got Star Trek, too. So
yes,
the new Star Trek Strange New World.
Matlock. They have all the CBS shows as well.
Oh, that's right.
The MTV.
The Kathy Bates Matlock. Have you seen that yet?
I've seen a couple of episodes, and it's not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was supposed to be some updated Matlock, which it is not.
Really?
It is an attorney who's an attorney in her own right who happens to be named Matlock and uses the idea of the Matlock TV show to further launch herself. It's almost what's the word? It's like an inside joke almost. It's aware of it.
Sounds pretty meta.
Self-aware. Yeah, it's meta. That's a good way to describe it. So it's not the classic reboot that people would think, like this is the Matlock that we thought of the 1960s or 1980s. No, it's completely different.
I'm not sold. Also, everybody kind of felt like Andy Griffith was their grandpa, you know?
Oh, no, absolutely. And I had to get past that. And I said, okay, they're not trying to sell this to me as if it's Andy Griffith, the same character. It's not. It's
Good
not.
cracker.
It's just aware of the Andy Griffith show and they're using that as a comparison point and a backstory for Kathy Bates' character.
I think Paramount Plus also has the modern classic Beavis and Butthead.
I've never liked that show.
Oh.
Cornhole, bunghole. Love it. I saw it. It just was never funny to me.
Was it for you? Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Because there were too many people at my high school who they were exactly like. And I didn't like them. So by association, I didn't like Beavis and Butthead.
Fair enough, because my mom didn't like The Office because she's like, they're too on the nose of the people that I work with.
Right.
But I thought it was hilarious. And she's like, no, I've worked with literally every one of those people. So.
And I think maybe that was part of the appeal for some people. Beavis and Butthead, especially for Gen X. We had a lot of folks who were Beavis and Butthead who were pretty dumb and socially unaware, but, they were blissfully ignorant. The show just wasn't funny to me. The animation wasn't all that cool. It just seemed cheap in every way. Sorry if you happen to be connected to the show. I wasn't a fan.
I'm not connected to it, but I think it's hilarious. And they could have picked those kids right out of my high school.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I mean. But for me, it didn't have the same type of allure.
I think you reach sort of a Pavlovian point where you catch on to the zen of how brilliant it is. And until that switch is flipped, it's just annoying.
Brilliant? That's a ooh.
I know. I stand by
a wide chasm.
I stand by it. Watch some of the newer episodes. They've got the old ones that were on MTV, and they've got 2 seasons of the newer episodes. Trust me on this.
Intro slaps, though.
Oh, it does. It does.
Does that slap?
Yeah, it does. It does. And maybe because Beavis and Butthead seemed a whole lot like Wayne's World, I didn't like Wayne's World either.
Well, they could be distant inbred cousins.
Yeah, there were a lot of similarities. I think there were even some inside jokes or crossovers with the T-shirts to wear. I'd have to look it up. But no, I didn't care for either of them for the same reason. Because I went to high school with them, and they weren't cool then. They're not cool now.
Well, I think my overall point was that unlike, say, Peacock, which I think got a boost from the Olympics, Paramount Plus has a lot of stuff that people want to watch, old and new. I mean,
yes.
For God's sakes, they've got the whole 7 seasons of Mission Impossible, which is crack to me.
I'm in love with Paramount Plus, and I didn't think I would be because I only started watching it because of Tulsa King. And then from there, you find out, oh, you got this. Oh, you got that. Oh, and it's like Taylor Sheridan. Oh, and this is also Taylor Sheridan's show. So, look, they got my money.
Because you were like a hater from the beginning, right?
I was.
Yeah.
I was.
That's crazy.
I was. And I thought, and I stopped. I had canceled the subscription after the first season of Tulsa King. It's like, I'm not watching anything else. I tried watching like Star Trek Lower Decks or something. I think that was Paramount Plus. And I couldn't get into it. It's like, well, there's nothing for me to watch. And then my wife, unbeknownst to me, behind my back, like she was cheating on me, decided to get Paramount Plus because she was watching something else on the network. I don't even know what it was. And Tulsa King's second season came, and then I started finding other stuff. I said, well, we're keeping this. We can't get rid of this.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
It's Later with Mo Kelly, live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. And Mark Rodder, I have a special treat for you right now. Do you remember earlier in the show we were talking about universal basic income?
In fact, I do. Okay,
we're talking about universal basic income, and we had a very special listener. I said that I made mention of Star Trek and how Star Trek did not have any money. You said credits. Remember that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, joining us on the show right now is Brandon Braga. He's a writer-director of Star Trek, The Orville, The End is Nigh, and he would like to correct you, Mark. Brandon, you there?
I'm here. Hi, guys.
Hey, you hit me on Instagram during the show, and I thought...
I was listening in my car on the way home.
I think that is fantastic. Very quickly, can you run down your IMDb credits for folks?
Oh, I did Star Trek for 15 years. Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Next Generation, Star Trek Enterprise, wrote a couple of the movies. That's what I'm mostly known for, but I recently did The Orville, which is a Star Trek knockoff. I did 2 seasons of Cosmos, science.
Oh, you're just showing off now.
No, I'm a big fan of your show, guys.
Well, I appreciate that.
I listen every night.
That is high praise. Now, what is it that Mark got wrong about Star Trek? Emphasis on Mark got wrong.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, the only reason I'm correcting him is because he's a self-proclaimed fan, and they don't have credits in the future. The Star Trek future. There's no money at all, as a matter of fact.
What does Kirk yell to alternate universe Spock in Mirror Mirror? What does he yell at him? What?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not an original series guy.
Oh, come on.
My tenure started on Next Generation, so you got me there.
But you got to know this stuff. He offers him credits.
Challenge.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, a couple hundred years passed between the original series and Next Generation, so maybe that's what happened.
I think the judges need to declare this a draw.
I agree.
I was letting you Star Trek nerds fight it out because I was under the impression, Mark, that there was no money in the future. And I thought that was mentioned in the Star Trek movies. I think it was Star Trek First
3. Contact.
First Contact, yes. First Contact. They made mention of there not being any money as one of the evils.
Captain Picard to Alfre Woodard says there is no money in the future. And she says, you mean you don't get paid? And he explains that it's just not something that's valued anymore. People look to better themselves.
I think by the time that came along, the whole universe of Star Trek had been ironed out, whereas in 1966 to 69, they were making stuff up as they went along.
That's a great point, actually.
Okay.
That's a great point.
So can we say you're both right or you're both wrong?
I think we're both right.
I am happy to be tied with Brandon Braga. This is really cool.
I love live radio. And Brandon, we have to go to a break, but please, I'm going to put you on hold. Can you make sure that Stefan gets your info so we can stay in touch and have you on to have a more formal Star Trek conversation and talk about your career?
Absolutely. It'd be my pleasure.
Oh, you got to come in here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Have you come in studio. That'd be great.
Oh, I would love to, man. I would love to.
Oh, we'll have to make that happen then.
Okay.
All right. Have a great evening.
Thanks, guys.
And before we let you go for this hour, we got to let you know that the 14th annual KFI Pastathon is here. Chef Bruno's charity, Katarina's Club, provides more than 25,000 meals every single week to kids in need here in Southern California. Your generosity makes it all happen. There are 3 ways to help if you didn't know. You can donate right now at KFIAM640.com/Pastathon. And you can shop at any Smart and Final store and donate any amount at checkout. You can head into any Wendy's restaurant in Southern California and donate $5 or more and get a coupon book for Wendy's goodies. We have our all-day live broadcast from the Anaheim White House on Giving Tuesday, December 3rd. So come on out and see us from 5 a.m. all the way through later with Mo Kelly at the end of the evening at 10 p.m. You can donate on site and drop off pasta and sauce donations. 100% of your donation goes to Katarina's Club. And also, we have 2 special events this week. Friday from 4 to 7, Tim Conway Jr. will be broadcasting live at the brand new Wendy's in Mission Viejo, which is 23022 Alicia Parkway. Come by and say hello, donate $5 or more in store, and get a coupon book. And the next day, Saturday, from 2 to 5 p.m., the Fork Report with Neil Saavedra will be broadcasting live at Smart and Final in Lake Forest, 23631 El Toro Road. Come by, shop for Thanksgiving, say hello, and donate any amount to the KFI Pastathon in-store at checkout. And if you don't remember any of that, or not all of it, you can go to pastathon.com. KFI AM 640, we're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
Whether you love us, hate us, or haven't made up your mind, we're glad you're here.
KFI
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere.